I'm Jason Shropshire, Chief Operating Officer at Infusionpoints. Infusionpoints is a managed security services provider focused on helping commercial companies build their federal and public sector business. In this talk, our Director of Security Operations, Chad Spears, and I discuss how we use Graylog in our managed service offerings, Xcellerat'ing and XP40, to accelerate our customers' path to FedRAMP authorization. Thanks for watching.
We needed a SIEM that was going to work across the board for all of our use cases, and that is Graylog. We can deploy it on EC2s, backed by AWS EC2 and all the services that go along with that. We have knowledge of how to do that and meet these requirements, right, across all the different use cases that we see. Introducing Xcellerat'ing, as time has gone on, we've expanded what Infusionpoints does, from just advisory to the VNSOC managed services, and then into engineering. And that brings us to our Xcellerat'ing engineered builds. We wrote it in Terraform, and it uses best practices from AWS. Again, a lot of it is just combining all the experiences that we have and pulling those things together, and then just automating that across a use case that will work for most of our customers. And we blend in our advisory services to help support a lot of the FedRAMP controls. Just things like that just have to be done. You have to have written documentation and things built into your management processes and such. But a big, heavy part of it is this security stack. And that security stack is technology-based. It is scanners that you need to have to do continuous monitoring. It includes things like a SIEM, which is required. There's a whole control family, but those can be changed out. Graylog is always central to what we do. This is a closer look at Xcellerat'ing. The idea is it's in AWS parlance. There's the multi-account best practices that AWS has. We have a root central account, and from there we can do things in AWS organizations that propagate to all the accounts under that organization. A lot of that is best practices around security of the accounts themselves. We have a management account that really features MFA as well as the Bastion host capabilities to provide access to the environment. Transit account is really crucial to boundary control of the actual application that's hosted here, right? So all the inbound and egress traffic to the application environment has to go through that transit account. We can look at transit gateway flow logs, VPC flow logs, and just pin the ones that we're interested in Graylog when we're looking for ingress things that are going on or anomalies there. Security account is where we host Graylog and some of the other security tools, and all that stuff is hosted and automatically built by Xcellerat'ing. And we can customize this based on a customer's need. And then we have the external services, which are largely limited to AWS services that are authorized by DoD and FedRAMP. So those are pretty tried and true. And then we have external services like CrowdStrike, Duo, a closer look at our practices around centralized logging. Notably, we've got the security account here in the center with Graylog here. The logging account, generally we're pulling from services like CloudTrail for AWS API events. We're pulling from CloudWatch for instance logs. But you ship to CloudWatch logs, and then from CloudWatch logs, we're plumbing that from each account into Kinesis as a subscription filter. And then with Kinesis, we're processing that into an S3 bucket, and all of that is independent of Graylog, right? So all that's just running. S3 is a source of record at that point. So deep archive can be found there. Our default is 1 year. 90 days or so we move to Glacier. So we have life cycle policies that help reduce the cost of long-term log storage. So that helps meet the archive requirement. But as far as hot storage goes, that's Graylog, right? So we're subscribing to the Kinesis streams from Graylog using the inputs, and we're pulling out of Kinesis into Graylog. We process, put things in OpenSearch. We have one customer now that this architecture is up to about 1.2 terabytes. We've designed it for 500, and it's pretty amazing that it has scaled up without a whole lot of trouble, but we're super impressed by the ability to scale and use resources in the ways that Graylog can.
So Jason's done a great job of showing the architecture and the back end and the design of Xcelerator. And when Jason and the engineering team at InfusionPoints, and we were all sitting around the table brainstorming all of this, and I seen that diagram, I just almost shook my head. I was like, this is going to be a lot of data. And so when we were describing and discussing what SIM are we looking at here, and I had touched Graylog before, messed around with it, so I said, you know what, let's try Graylog in this. And I was so impressed by the way that it was able to just adapt to what we were doing, what we're doing for our customers, and how we're leveraging Graylog to take them through this FedRAMP process. And what that means for them is they have the ability to sell their product to the federal government. And what we're helping them customers do is be able to bring this to the auditor quicker, right? Get it to market quicker. We let Graylog do what Graylog is great at doing, and that's presenting and throwing us data really quickly, and our analysts being able to query that and show the auditor just super fast. This is exactly what you'd be seeing from an actual Xcelerator deployment. This is a live Graylog instance up and running. We're refreshing here. We've got logs coming in. And I first want to jump into the indexes here. Here is where we would take the auditor when they say, hey, show me that you've got 90 days worth of logs. Here's our indexes and how we're breaking the logs out. And so our analysts and our engineers have went through and really engineered Graylog to just work seamlessly with that, the types of logs that were coming in. The one thing about Xcelerator, as Jason mentioned, is it's all Terraform built, right? So it's all code. So every deployment is pretty much the same until we bring the customer in, and they're the ones that's going to be bringing in the change for us. From the back-end perspective, when we look at things like authentication solutions, right, we leverage AWS Managed AD. We leverage pretty much, for the most part, the same MFA devices, the same EDRs. We know what's coming, so we know how to organize it. And when this is deployed, we can very quickly have the customer up, again, accelerating the process for them. So what we're actually doing with Graylog, logs are just flowing in through AWS. Graylog is simply subscribing to those logs. Those Kinesis streams, we like to be nice and neat and tidy with those. So you'll see here that we have a centralized logging stream, and that being your managed AD logs or your endpoint logs, right? Microsoft logs, if you will. Those are going to be coming in from there. You'll notice as well, we have a centralized logging CloudTrail stream. This is telling us what's actually going on within the AWS console or within the AWS environment itself. There's RDS, right? I got to be able to collect the logs from there. So again, another input source. And then Security Hub, so another AWS feature that we have turned on there. So all of our security-related findings, hey, we'll pull those in and we'll organize those as well. And here is the big bad boy, VPC flow log. So we have tried our best to go through the FedRAMP controls and determine to ourselves, how can we simplify this? Or the control family states that you have to capture north-south traffic, but also specific points of interest. And so we work with the customer to determine what are those specific points of interest and try to really help them tune that so that we're not just getting so much noise. But then we also have WAF logs that are coming in. Again, being able to bring in these inputs very seamlessly, just providing the ARN there, hooking up to the Kinesis stream, we're off and running, again, accelerating that process, right? What do we do with the logs once we get them in? When you start deploying about 400 to 500 extractors to each input, you may not necessarily get the system performance that you're looking for. Our team has actually went back through and designed out all the pipelines now and all the stages. Logs are only being passed through the grok patterns that they need to. So if we scroll down here, we can actually see each one of these that was hand-built by our engineers and our analysts, and there's the actual rule itself that's pumping this over to grok. This is doing nothing more than normalizing the log for us. However, doing this for every log type, it can be very time-consuming. When we get them into the environment, at this point, hey, we've deployed Xcelerator, Graylog has stood up. The goal is accelerating this process. And one of the things that we absolutely love about Graylog is content packs. And if you're not taking advantage of content packs, you need to be. Now, what's contained in the content pack? We have those inputs. They'll change because the orange change. We have all of those pipeline rules. But more so than anything is we have all those beautiful dashboards that we've built and that tells the story so nicely. So we pull all of those in with content packs. But not only the dashboards, alerting as well. There are some control families that actually state that, yes, you've got to log it, but you've also got to alert on it. And so the auditor is going to come and want to see that information as well. Again, knowing FedRAMP and the experience that Jason and Gary brought with InfusionPoints of going through this several times, we were able to harness all of that together and have our teams bring this together and develop this content pack. And I truly believe that's one of the things that leads to our audit success and preparedness is the ability to just take it from environment to environment. Because At the end of the day, yes, we may have a new auditor. It may be a new 3PAO that's coming in and auditing the customer. But we can say, hey, we just took this through audit. We know the questions they're going to be asking, so simply deploy it over here, and let's get the show on the road, if you will. We started building these dashboards out, and we got an idea, and we said, hey, if we can present this information to the auditor like this and they like it, then why don't we just make them a whole auditing dashboard? Now we're speaking Mr. Auditor's language, all right? So we can go down through there, and the auditor says, okay, I need you to show me how you are logging or how you're bringing in when an account within managed AD, because that's what I read in your SSP. Show me how you log that. Okay, right here is the information in a nice pretty graph for you there. Again, seems like such a simple thing, but to the auditor, it really just, it took away all the questions. It took away all the doubts, right? And so that's why it's so beneficial for us. What used to take the auditor, when they got our SecOps team on the phone, used to take the auditor for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours for us to go through and query this information, show this information. We just cut that time down to 15, 20 minutes on the phone, and now the auditor sits there and he's, what am I going to do with all this extra time? We noticed that they actually started going in and asking and requesting those teams to make changes to user accounts. Now, typically, they're not going to come into an environment and request you to do that type of stuff. The beauty behind Graylog, another piece of this, right, these dashboards being able to be so liquid and so fluid through there, we can simply just throw in the user account name. So they give us the user account, and let's just say, for in this instance, the user of Ryan here. And we just simply search, and we say, okay, Mr. Auditor, there's not a problem. Here you go. I search for the user account. There's every interaction that happened with said username there. Graylog has done a phenomenal ability to allow us to accelerate this process for our teams and accelerate this process for our customer overall. I could go on for days about this. Love the product. Love the ability to be customizable with the product and really make it our own and ensure that it is working for our customer.